Once you really get to know your staff, your team, and you understand their motivations, and you can do so by asking, what does a great day look like for you? Or what does a bad day look like for you? Because that will help a leader avoid those pitfalls. Now, I'm not suggesting that a leader has to have complete agreement or everything has to be done in 5 unique ways for each team member. I like to say that there's alignment versus agreement.
Hello,
right?
hello. Welcome to another Knowledge Bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Kelli Lester.
And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself.
Please help me welcome Kelli with proactive team building.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
My name is Kelli Lester, and I am one of the co-founders and owners of OnX Rising. We are a change management consulting firm that really specializes in individual and organizational change management. So we focus on financial wellness and then also in the space of inclusive leadership and innovation.
Okay.
So I am originally and now back in my hometown of Indianapolis. I think I feel good about that based on some recent sporting events that have been going on.
Yes.
I'll leave that alone for right now. I gotta temper my excitement. Nevertheless, I am from the Midwest. I've been working in the Midwest, based in the Midwest most of my career, but have worked all over the world in terms of doing diversity, equity, and inclusion training in South Africa. So that is my purpose and passion put together. But I started my career actually in media. So
okay.
Yeah, I thought I wanted to be Oprah. It didn't really work out. No. Or you would already know me. So I was in telecommunications in my younger ages, and public relations and community affairs, and then really fell into diversity, equity, and inclusion because of my passion for recruiting people into my industry, people of color, people that look like me, going to my alma mater and recruiting particularly people of color within the telecommunications department and introducing them to media roles. And over time, we've had great success with that program, but I started to see a revolving door, and my own personal curiosity and work with this on the side project of my day job turned into my passion. I wanted to really understand, why are people leaving? And it really boiled down to how people lead. So not everyone was engaged fully by their leader. And that is really what really got me into culture. How do we build cultures and build leaders and environments that attract talent and then retain and grow that talent? And so I've been doing that for the last 25 years now.
Wow. That's amazing. So during your discovery, when the shift happened, what were some of the common mistakes you've seen leaders make?
Well, it's interesting because the flip side of these answers are the answers to fix it, right? When you think about it, but some of the common mistakes that I see with leaders is they try to they hire with and motivate with a like me bias. So we have a tendency to, as humans, be attracted to the resumes and the experiences of people that are common to us. And so that is a big mistake when building and motivating a team. And then once the team is hired, then we think that they're motivated the same way we are. And this becomes increasingly more difficult when you get into generational diversity or racial and ethnic diversity around the team, or introverts, extroverts, right? You'll put people on the spot, or will promote those people that, speak up well or speak often, versus really taking the time to say, what might be needed right now is, I don't want to say a quiet storm, but someone that's more thoughtful. And so you want to build a team in a diverse way based on style as well as background, and to help you reach that goal. So that is a big common mistake, is that like me hiring and like me motivation. I
Yeah.
think the other is, bottom line, is valuing differences. And so sometimes we only value those ideas that sound like ours. And
Mm.
so the downside of that is you don't have as much innovation. You end up with more group think, right? When
Yeah.
you have this homogeneous team, even if they're not homogeneous based upon race, they still may have come from the same school or think the same way. And so it really doesn't get you to go to greatness. You might
Yeah.
be good, but you don't go from good to great, right? Which is
Yeah.
a great leadership book, by the way.
Yeah.
But I believe this not valuing differences. And part of that really comes from not understanding how we got to where we are or why we think the way we do. Many times we learn that when we're in relationships with someone that's different. And this could be at work or, at home
Yeah.
for that matter. So it could be very, very interesting when you start to see yourself. I'm a PK, right? A
Yeah.
preacher's kid, right?
Okay.
So many of us know the concept of iron sharpens iron. And
Yes.
so how can you get better if you're really just kind of hearing the same thing reflected back that you're saying? You
Yeah.
can't.
There may be a leader right now that feel like, let's say that employee, you have the introvert and the extrovert. Some leader right now may say, you know what, that's the introvert fault for not speaking up. They're grown, they can speak for themselves. I'm not a mind reader, I'm not a psychic.
Yeah, so let me give a personal example I think that may resonate. So if you have more than one child,
Mm.
this will totally resonate. So I have a boy and a girl. They are grown now. But I obviously wanted my kids to get a great education and go to college. But what it took to motivate them was different, right?
Mm.
One is an introvert, one is an extrovert, right?
Yeah.
And so if I lead and only say, and I hear parents say this, well, why can't you be more like your spouse,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we'll value or see success one way.
Mm.
Sometimes, especially with our children, we may see success based on failures that we had, right?
Yeah.
So we
Mm.
push that on other people. I think we do that same thing with staff members. So it's almost like we can only see leadership represented the way we see it and not the way others. So when it comes to introverts and extroverts in particular, and how we, because I think your question is baked in, what practically might a leader do to
Yeah.
motivate people that are different in this
Absolutely.
time? A practical example is if you have a meeting and you don't talk about what the agenda is till you get there, how prepared are those that are more thoughtful thinkers? They have great ideas and answers, but they may want to give their best. They want to be reflective,
Mm.
not just, shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an extrovert and, we can go any direction in this interview
Right.
because I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with shooting from the hip. I would be
Yeah.
comfortable if I never got a question, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone feels that way. And
Absolutely.
once you really get to know your staff, your team, and you understand their motivations, and you can do so by asking, what does a great day look like for you? Or
Mm.
what does a bad day look like for you? Because that will help a leader avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not suggesting that a leader has to have complete agreement or everything has to be done in 5 unique ways for each team member.
Mm.
I like to say that there's alignment versus agreement. So we may not always agree that abrasion actually gets us to greater ideas. So
Mm.
I think practical ways a leader can get to know their staff is to ask them, what
Yeah.
motivates you? What gets you up in the morning? What are the things that make for a great day for you? And literally expound upon that. And then share the same thing about yourself so that you almost are avoiding the conflict before it even happens, right? So what would it look like for a team member? You send the agenda in advance. I'd
Yeah.
like you to come to the meeting prepared too. And now you've taken the anxiety away from someone that cannot show up their best.
Mm.
Work example, and this was hard for me personally. I had a very great colleague and friend. I actually started out at this organization was my client. They were my consultant when I was in-house leading diversity in the Midwest at Sara Lee. And I had hired the consultant for about, I don't know, I guess 8 years. So I got to know the staff very well. Later, I ended up working for that firm. One of the ladies that worked there, her and I became very close. We did training together all over the world. And so we really got connected. And then I got hired there. And I became Work Kelli. So Work Kelli is a little more type A, right? So work hard, play hard is my mindset. And so she met Work Kelli, and Work Kelli starts the meeting on time. She gets right into it. At that particular stage in my career, I didn't stop to connect as long because we already knew each other, right? So over time, she literally stopped speaking to me. She didn't want to work with me, and it was visible. It was I knew it. So I asked her one day, I said, what happened? We used to be really close. Did I do something? Help me understand. And one of the things she told me is she said, when you start the meetings the way you do and you just go right in, I don't want to work with you. It doesn't create a great work environment for me. She's the type of person that needed to make a connection before she could give her absolute best. And so long story short, I understood what was needed for me. I made adjustments to my behavior. Every meeting we started, I built in my type A mind. I needed to build in 5 minutes to check in with her. How was the weekend and her kids? And as a result, who wins? My clients win because they get the best talent, right? Me and her had a great, productive working relationship. We don't think alike. So people were getting the best product because we thought it through from all angles. And so I think as leaders, we want to think about the outcome, right? Sometimes we think our way is the best way, or we want to be right. And I think you want to think about what will be the best outcome for the team, for the company to reach our goal. And then that will help us, I think, more easily navigate the shifts that we need to make or the adjustments. We'll make an assumption on the motivations of the team. We'll make an assumption that this person is not performing. Sometimes we don't even ever look in the mirror, right? And say, what did I do to contribute to the relationship? So self-reflection as a human being, but especially as a leader, that equals growth. At the end of the day, I have to have my feedback. What did I do? But if I don't get new input, then really, where am I going to go? Right? I need to know how I'm showing up. So I think what we're getting at here is seeking feedback. So everybody knows, right? We give and we receive feedback. And I think we're good as leaders. Most of us are good at giving feedback. We know to start with the, positive and then we know how to set the conversation up. And I think even if it's difficult feedback, I think most of us know how to receive it, and the keys to receiving difficult feedback is to not shut the other person down and thank them for giving that feedback. Because I could keep operating and never know. I'm operating like a bull in a china shop until someone tells me this is the impact, right? But seeking feedback gives us the space to get in front of it, to proactively. And so I look at my team and I ask them, I do a performance review for myself.
Awesome.
As a leader, I ask them, what could I be doing better, right? And I don't just do it 2 times a year. I do it all the time, especially if it's a post-mortem on a project. We talk about the work and we talk about how we work together, both with the client and with each other. So I would say very practically, make it a disciplined practice to proactively seek feedback about your own behavior, about your own leadership style, what you can do different. Now, of course, once you hear that feedback, you can negotiate around what you're willing to do, what you can do, because we are restricted, especially now, right? Either by staff, resources, money. So it's okay to say, well, here's what I can do. Will that work? Would that make it better? What strategies will work, that will help alleviate or at least make the situation better? So I think we have to get out of our own way as leaders And not that you asked this question, but I think I call it 360, right? So we probably heard of that. 360 feedback means I'm getting feedback from my peers. I'm getting feedback from up above, if that's possible, if you're not the CEO. And then also I'm getting feedback from subordinates as well. And so you want to really get a full view for how you're showing up if you're looking at your ability to grow. And I think as leaders, we got to connect on the why. Because some of us, you may not care, right? So if we don't have this, why should I change? And the biggest business case around why to change is future leadership depends on my ability to lead inclusively. Because I'm dealing with 4 generations in the workforce. Nobody thinks we really do not think alike at all. So I won't say my age, but I'll just say my son has entered the workforce. And if he was reporting to me, right? It will look very different, right? In terms of how I'll need to work together. And the younger generations are requiring more feedback. They also maybe require their leader and expect their teams to be diverse. They expect their organizations to give to nonprofit organizations. So there's a different level of expectation of how we work. And if you don't work that out, you may not be able to reach your goals. And this could impact your paycheck, your ability to move up in your organization or lead your business effectively if we don't know how to adapt. And I'm not saying we bend over backwards and change who we are, right? Your organization and you're who you are, but we do need to understand to make this work, we can't do it alone. That's the whole purpose of leadership. We need the team.
Knowledge bomb. This is so great. And you talked about those generations. You said 4 generations. I'm like, wow. Even going through the generations, whether it's a baby boomer or a Gen X or a millennial or a Gen Z, all these different generations within the workforce. And I see it happen all of the time. The 20-year-old and the 30-year-old don't understand each other. The 30-year-old and the 40-year-old don't understand each other. And the 50 and 6 years old, oh my goodness, they think everybody is crazy. And we talked about the feedback with the leader and the employee. I want to, just shift real quick to the employee to employee relationship, because that's a big thing. I want to do something different today. I want to start from the employee to the employee, the players, and then we're going to go to the coach and the leader. So what are some things you see within the employee? And like I said, crossing through these generations and this misunderstanding, all these different things, different beliefs, the Gen Zs, I see it. They're forcing companies to change into giving back to the communities. It's amazing. I love it. I love to see it. I'm a Gen X. And I wish, man, I'm like, golly, I look, the millennials too, but man, I look at these Gen Zs, they on a whole nother level. And I'm like, dang, I wish I would have had the confidence they had. I was too scared. I am going to admit it for all the rest of the Gen Xs, because Gen Xs don't want to admit that, but we were scared. We were scared to speak up because we were told not to. But these Gen Zs are coming in, changing everything. I'm like, man.
So it's an interesting thing you're bringing up, because I have 7 inclusive leadership traits that I do many workshops and coach around. So I won't go over all of them, but I want to definitely pause and talk about self-awareness. So I don't care what training you're in. They may use a different word, but if you don't know thyself, it is very difficult to understand how you show up. Right? So self-awareness is critical, and self-awareness helps us understand what are our key values. And so practically speaking, I think we've all heard the example around Thanksgiving. I always see it kind of posted and going around, where the couple gets married, the wife makes the turkey, she cuts the turkey, the husband's like, why did you cut the turkey? And she's like, that's the way you do it. Come to find out, she cut the turkey because her mom had done the same thing, and she just did what she saw her mother do. But what she found out is her mother cut the turkey because they didn't have a big enough pan to put the full turkey, right? So, right. And I have a similar story in that, my mother grew up, very humble. It was 8 kids and, obviously my grandfather and grandmother, and they would put their shoes underneath the bed because they only had a makeshift 3-bedroom. So the dining room made into a bedroom for the boys and the 1 bedroom for the parents and 1 for the girls. So they had no closet space. So I got married and I did the same. I had always done it. I didn't really know why either. So the same experience happened, and I had married someone that was a little more well-to-do, and he was like, "Why are you put your stuff in the closet?" So we have to question, why are we doing what we're doing? And essentially what that's doing is assessing where our values come from. So leader or no leader, do you understand yourself, or are you just operating robotically based on what you've seen, or are you just emulating, whether it works or not? Again, are we trying to be right or effective, right? Focus on the outcome. So I would say self-awareness and introspection and self-reflection is critical before you start dealing with others, right? So that's number 1. And then the same principle applies around feedback. We need to seek, give, and receive feedback, particularly across lines of difference. Now, my experience has been people are great at all of these types of traits. However, right, amplifying others, creating psychological safety. We're good at a whole lot of things when the person is like us. Where the problem comes in is when you think differently than me, act differently than me, dress differently than me. Go about, you'll see success differently.
Different genders, different skin colors, different.
Right. So once I understand where did that come from, for example, I career-wise came up in the 80s. One of my mentors told me, never cry at work. She was a female. And she was telling me the right thing. She said, it will be a career killer, right? And now we fast forward today and we're asking people to bring your full self or your best self to work. And sometimes with the difficulties that's going on in the world, you can't drop all of that at the door, right? And so am I going to ostracize someone that was more sensitive, right? Am I going to judge them and mentor them based on the 1980s? Or am I mentoring them based upon today or the future? Right? So I really think when it comes to peer-to-peer, it's really about a working relationship, right? How can you, am I valued? Number 1, do I understand where my values come from, right? Do they have a place in the workplace? Because I don't think advocating for something I value that doesn't have anything to do with work or isn't connected to the company's values is a worthwhile conversation. But if you step outside of one of our company values, I need to say, hey, Jane or Jim, when you did that, the I statement, this is how I felt, right? And so and here's the impact on the team. And we lose time when you don't deliver on your assignments. I really would appreciate it if we can maybe work out a way that works for you, and then and come in leaning in with positive intent. And so I ultimately, I think we seek feedback only from people that are going to think like us. Building trust is difficult. I would say repairing trust is even more difficult, right? So I guess I'm pushing the proactive, intentional leadership component here. But regardless if it's a new team or a new team member, because anytime a new team member is added to the team, it's a new team. Okay, it's a new team dynamic. So whether you're building trust or repairing trust, some key things that any leader can do to do that, or any person, is through empowerment, right? And I know that that's been a buzzword for a while, and it even may mean different things to different people. And so it begs the component or question to ask, right? What does empowerment look like to you? I would literally have that conversation with my team, right? Because what I might think that looks like and just start executing might look different. But figure out ways to empower your people. So that could mean delegating, taking a risk and giving a project to someone, asking them what it looks like for me to support you so that I'm not overstepping, right? Tell them I'm trying to demonstrate greater trust and accountability with you. Historically, this is what it's looked like, but I believe in you. So encouraging them, But one of the things I think that is, and I put them together. So one of my inclusive leadership traits is amplifying others, but I think amplifying diverse voices and sometimes unpopular or uncommon ideas, things that might push the envelope in your organization, is a key way to build trust. So the point is, when you're not in the room, I should be advocating for your ideas or you, right? And so amplifying those ideas that might seem unpopular to get to the positive outcome or change, and then advocating for diverse talent. So I need to show and demonstrate my support when you're around, but I also need to do it when you're not in the room. And so those types of behaviors build trust. And I think you have to demonstrate it through, so for example, one of the things I had a hard time with when I first became a leader is, I'm type A. I often felt that if I wanted it done right, I needed to do it myself.
Oh man.
So, and I know I'm not alone. So, right.
Yes,
Sometimes
absolutely.
what got you to be the great, to get the promotion, the behavior, you're often in organizations not taught how to lead once you're leading people, right? You got there because you're a technician. You're a great individual contributor. To be a leader, it's a different type of muscle that you have to exercise. And not all the time are you given the tools to do so, hence your podcast, right? So I think you really have to ask, what does that transition look like? Get the support you need. But one key thing is empower people and amplify those diverse voices or unpopular ideas. That shows your peers, right, where you are, and then advocate for that diverse talent, even when they're not in the room, right? But if your team sees you support and hands off, and that you trust them, you're demonstrating your trust. Taking a risk. You may have hired the first female or the youngest team member. Almost intentionally finding a project for this new hire to be successful is going to build that level of trust. And then I feel like giving feedback, because I feel like sometimes when we're not comfortable with the team member, maybe we have nothing in common with them. It's harder to give feedback. But the person, and I don't know if you ever pledged, right, or one in the Divine Nine, but if you're in a sorority or fraternity, one of the things I thought about is the people that loved me the most were the ones that probably were the hardest on me at that time, right? And sometimes if you look back on your leadership journey, you probably did have some bosses that you didn't love fully, right? But they help to make you who you are based on that feedback. So I've seen in a lot of workplaces that I went in to consult, that they would continue to promote people that are in the majority, and the minority person gets a great performance review, but they never promote them. So what was really happening is you're not giving them the real feedback on how they're showing up or how they're being seen or helping them manage their PR in the organization. Somebody's got to tell me, right? And I feel very, very, very strongly for Black and Brown people, we don't get that honest feedback. We can be the first, but because of that, people are afraid to give us the honest truth. So I think feedback is a gift. And I look at it as such. And even with my clients, when I'm finished with the project, I'm like, please share with me, even if it's not good, it helps me get better.
Knowledge bomb. Pulling, just the curiosity just coming out. You said something, and I want to deal with that, Black and Brown, right? Because Caucasian brothers and sisters, maybe sometimes they're on the fence about leaving true feedback because there are laws and things like that if you say the wrong thing, somebody can turn around and you can end up fired. Do you have a solution for that?
Yeah, I think as a leader, I would expect that you know how to, as we used to call it, read the room, right? Similarly, you need to take just as much effort. So I've been talking about this a lot, right? Proactively ask the question, but inevitably you're going to run into something, right? Something you didn't expect. We're busy, right? So when that happens, how are you dealing with that conflict or problem?
Mm.
So I believe that the best way to address it is, one, you have to be courageous and say, or get to know your team member and understand the best times to give them feedback. And I know
Yeah.
you can relate to this, because if you're married, there's a time and a
Oh,
place to give that feedback. Okay.
absolutely.
So that same level of attention about
Mm.
your team, like where does Sally do well, right?
Yes.
When is the best time to give her feedback? Do I give it in the morning? Do I give it in a one-on-one meeting? Do I take her out to lunch, right? What's going to create the scene, right?
Mm.
And I think the way you don't wait until there's a problem to
Gotcha.
create psychological safety,
Proactive. Yeah.
right? You always make sure that it's safe to talk to me.
Yeah.
And how we react. And I think people see it more in personal lives where we don't manage all of that. At least I
Yeah.
found it with myself, right? Like, I'll talk however I want to talk to my kids, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Some people will
Absolutely.
come across like that, but I'm managing myself
Yeah. Yeah.
at work. Well, I would
Yeah.
say the people you love need the same amount of attention,
If not more, right?
same amount of care, right?
Yeah.
We treat them the worst sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with our team members, I can't understate it enough. You need to get to know people for truly who they are,
Yeah.
what they value, and remember it. I don't care if you have to write down their birthday or write down that, Kelly doesn't like morning meetings. Don't talk to her after she had her first cup of coffee. And when I ask you to finish these sentences, I will understand what makes a good day for you. When is the best time for you to, have a get feedback? How frequently do you want to have feedback? What is your preferred method or way, right? So you can get unique with your questions, but I hate to say it's as simple as get to know people truly for who they are, ask the question versus make the assumption, and then consistently check in for feedback. And as I continue to build trust and lead inclusively, when it comes to a hard, difficult thing, it'll be smooth for me to say it because I'll know how to set the stage. And some
Yes.
of that is kind of rooted in one of my inclusive leadership traits, which is creating a psychologically safe environment. And I know that's a big word, but the reality is it safe to speak up here? Is
Mm.
it safe to have a different opinion? Is it safe to give my boss feedback? Is it, because if not, what you end up seeing when it's not safe, people are just collecting a paycheck.
Mm.
They're going to do just enough. They're not going to do any more. So you're not going to get the great ideas. And I've seen it with a new hire. They get hired and everything's great and they're all excited. And then over time, they're just pushing papers and doing enough to get by. But you used to get all this energy.
Yeah.
Something happened in the way they were treated and or valued or not valued for them to be in that place.
Wow. Knowledge. Bomb. Oh my goodness. This is so amazing. I done changed the title of this podcast to Proactive Team Building. I want to shift to OnX Rising.
Yeah, well, one thing I really want to share is how my organization got started,
Okay.
because it really was born. So my business partner was asked by her pastor to do a financial wellness workshop or a financial literacy program, a 6-week program. So at the time, I think she may have been retired and I was still working in corporate. So we both have a personal testimonial around money. I won't give hers away, but mine really was, I found myself and my family, multiple people had passed away. And every time I saw them passing a hat. And after 3 times, I was like, okay, something is wrong here. This should not be the way this is done, right? And so and then finally, I also ended up getting a divorce, and then within a few months, my ex-husband passed away, and long story short, ended up $250,000 in debt. Right?
Wow.
I ended up not filing for bankruptcy and got myself out of debt and living, in financial freedom.
Wow.
But that did not happen because I was taught the right way at home, right? So OnX Rising was born out of this vision to build wealth with Black and Brown communities. So that's why we call the name of it Onyx, and then Rising, because we believe with a plan, anyone can rise from their circumstances.
Yes.
So we really started on the financial wellness side, and we do that business, and we went beyond churches to corporations, and we try to help organizations build this into their employee benefit, because especially for Black and Brown communities, we don't talk about money, and it's not something that's taught. There's some laws being changed now where we're now teaching financial wellness just beginning this year in a lot of states in high school, but essentially it's not typically taught.
Yeah.
And so it's real important for us to get that information on budgeting before we can start dealing with investing. If we don't know how, if there's no money at the end of your month, it's a little difficult.
Absolutely.
So we evolved that business to really be an employee benefit. And that is how we personally want to invest in and support building legacies. Now, we do not sell any financial products. It's just the education. Okay. And we help people at the basics all the way. We call it Money Matters, Image versus Reality, and how you align those. And then those are 3 workshops. Our second stage is how do you maintain? And then the last is investing, which is how do you sustain that? And we bring in a wealth management professional that we've been partnering with for years that does sell financial products, right? But essentially we have those 3 stages. So that's really, really important and the core of our business and why we started. But then our second line is the inclusive leadership and innovation side of the business, which really encompasses strategy development, leadership development training, focus in on inclusive leadership, generational diversity, all those things, generational differences. But we also help organizations assess the culture of their organization and the health of it from an inclusive perspective, and then build strategies to help close those gaps. So people and education is a part of that, but it could be many other things. Maybe your business is trying to break into a new market, but you don't know how to communicate with the market. Maybe they're younger, maybe they're from the South and you're from the North, maybe they're African-American, or maybe you don't speak the language. So we really help organizations put those strategies in. So that's what we do right now. That we don't have any major event happening, but what I would suggest is if you want to reach us, you can definitely obviously go to our website, www.onyx2rise.com. But my partner has written a book called Leading in Chaos. And it's really about how to navigate through the storm. So she actually wrote this book. She was a previous deputy mayor. She's, been, worked in Fortune 500 companies and was one of the first Black females in a lot of places. But she did a stint in DC under Marion Barry at a time at the height of, crack cocaine epidemic. The irony is she only wrote about that period in her life and really helped to extrapolate leadership insights from those experiences. And the book has really created a resurgence because we now are dealing with a new opioid epidemic, and some of those practical strategies are applied. And it's the most entertaining. To me, it's like reading like a soap opera in a way, because you're learning through real experiences and what may even seem shocking. And so we are dealing with uncertainty now. I believe this book is a great tool and a fun read, an easy read, right? To learn some practical strategies that a lot of us are dealing with some extreme cases, whether it's layoffs or trying to do more with less, a smaller team, with people with addictions, right? Post-pandemic, we're dealing with a whole lot on the mental side as well as leaders. So that's some tools. But I would say our organization really, really looks at what is the plan. We believe without a plan, you cannot rise from whatever your situation is. And we do a great job of really understanding where are you, where is the organization, and what are the specific strategies that will help move the needle versus just saying, here's what we sell and put it a square peg in a round hole. So we really customize and build relationships with our clients to be sure we're giving the strategies that will move the needle.
And thank you for coming on to Lead to Greatness.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. If someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Kelli Lester, Kelli with the I, and of course our website, www.onyx2rise.com. Thank you so much for having us, Cedric.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.